All right. You know what time it is. You know where you're at. It's Vibrant. Let's do it. The return of the queen. Actually, you're not really the queen. You're the court astrologer. You can't be both.
Sorry, my apologies.
So everyone in the
I'm
chat,
taking the title tonight, though.
everybody's stoked that you're here. I'm seeing a lot of buzz. Got Kabir, Katriana, Liam, Braden, Mel, Ariel, Jenny G, Drift Advocate, Jimmet, Charlotte. Man, got a lot of good people already sounding off in the chat. So we're going to hang with Kaylee tonight, and we got our main man, Slick Dissident, here too. Going to get some astrological breakdowns of some very intense life stuff lately. I'm excited for that. Going to be interesting to just, look at all the angles, right? So how you doing, Kaylee? How's it going?
I opened like 1,000 charts, I swear to God. Oh, man. I've been good. Can you believe it's been more than a year? 2 years since my first Vibrant? When was the last time I was on? I forget. It was so
Your guess
long
is
ago.
as good as mine.
It was so long ago. Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for inviting me back. I think, it must have been Mel. Somebody dropped that in a private chat earlier, the return of the queen. And I was kind of laughing because Venus is becoming visible right now. And I just so happen to be in a Libra ruled year. So Venus is my Time Lord for the year. So Venus becoming visible is really symbolic for me. So nice timing, nice synchronicity. As always, Chance, you just have perfect timing. So
that's how I do it. Gabe, what's up, man? How's it going? I'm glad you could get a little break from your whiteboard cult. Gabe has started his own great whiteboard brotherhood. It's pretty amazing.
Buddy. Yeah, things are going wonderful. I have a little private, close-knit Telegram group, and we have been buzzing on some fascinating topics. And we had a meeting of the minds just a couple nights ago, and really pushing the edges of reality and challenging the entire parameters of math at large. And we made profound discoveries thanks to PK, my buddy Louis. We got a buddy named Eric who's out there from Austria. And yeah, it was kind of a private thing, but I'll never forget. I wish we had recorded it, but I'm kind of glad it was candid and spontaneous. So yeah, we renamed the group after that meeting of the minds, and we are now the Grand Whiteboard Brotherhood. And it's kind of I've been buzzing on my channel about how a lot of the greats in history are perceived as like individual overachievers. But then we look into it and find out they're actually think tanks with whole teams of PR relations, uh, whatever, interns working behind the scenes to play to agendas. And I'm thinking, you know what? I got my own think tank. So I want to give love and respect to everybody who's, their ideas are going to be showcased on the Slick Dissident channel. So don't think that I figured these things out all by myself. I got a whole team working behind me. So we're going to bring a lot of that forward.
Yeah, next week, right? We're going to review some of the crazy stuff that your think tank's been getting into. That's exciting. And I see False Reality Check in the chat. What's up, Legs and Buffalo? Congrats on the new baby. Super awesome. Well done. Glad to see you guys here. All right, so the thing that I put into the title, turning recent events on their Medusa's head, of course, I think that's a good place to start. I'm sure Kaylee's got other things that she's been considering to talk about. I've got questions for all of the studies that she's been into since we last had her on. But of course, we got to talk about the ear clip, allegedly, because that had some serious transits going on with it. And I'll just say something that I haven't talked about on the show about how intense the vibes were when this Mars and Uranus and Algol conjunction went off, that I found out probably almost over a week later that somebody I used to know, I consider them a friend, but we kind of drifted apart, vibe differences or whatever, actually got into an altercation with the police during that conjunction and was shot and killed. So like,
Oh shit.
you know, getting shot, it was like in the astrology at that time. But that being said, I'm still not convinced about the whole public event that we're considering either. I'm definitely not. Unless this certain somebody has Wolverine powers. I'm not sure. But yeah, Kaylee, what's up? What do you want to
Have
where do you
my
want to go with
opinions.
that?
Oh man. Oh, where do we start? Okay. So, without going into whether it was real or staged or not, the astrology is very succinct. Um, if you actually pull up my shared charts, we can, well, okay, fuck, where do we start? Do we want to talk about the general side of it first before we get into
Yeah.
all of the nitty-gritty? Okay. Well, hold up here. I just have so many windows open. Give me a minute here. So, actually take that down for a minute. Let's talk about the themes of Mars and Uranus first. So, zoom out a bit. Every about 18 months, Mars and Uranus come together. Just about 18 or 19 months. So it's not a particularly rare conjunction. A couple of years ago, I remember actually talking about it. I think it was actually on this channel about the Mars Uranus North Node conjunction that happened in Taurus. And actually, I believe you had Emily on for that episode. I remember that. So it's not like it's a super rare thing, right? It happens fairly often. But Mars, you have this idea of the warrior, right? There's there's some destructive aspects to Mars and there's constructive aspects to Mars, right? It can be anything from a sword to blood to a scalpel, right? Or it can be something much more hot like fire or explosions. And then you have Uranus, okay? Uranus has got this extremely unpredictable nature to it. You can consider Uranus to be much more like Prometheus, bringing the fire down from the gods to human mankind. I like to think of Uranus as the impulse towards individuality. There's a rebellious side to Uranus, and when you bring these two together, in natal charts especially, if you have someone that has that conjunction in their chart, or the opposition or the square, they tend to have this ideal that they want to fight for. Sometimes it can be a very rebellious edge that they have. I myself actually have a Uranus Mars opposition, so I know the vibe.
Could
But
you
anyway,
say too that a shadow aspect of Uranus would be, rather than like the independent rebellious streak, a collectivist bent?
see, I would only consider that if you were to believe that Uranus was a ruler of Aquarius, which is a modern take on the planet, which I actually don't feel that. But because there is that idealism there with Uranus, I feel like it could be very easy to get caught up in a movement or in an idea to be like, this is the right thing to do, even if it isn't actually the right thing to do, and take it to an extreme with the Mars. So less about the collectivism, more about the idealism, right? So there's that. Yeah. Now, one thing I did want to say also is that when we have these kinds of conjunctions, especially the big scary sounding ones like Mars Uranus, if you have that in your chart in some way, if it resonates, say you actually have the Mars Uranus conjunction like the shooter did, actually, or you have something similar, you're more likely to be more affected by that kind of a transit just by the nature of it resonating more with your natal chart. Also, for a conjunction like that to have a major impact, it also would need to aspect something very closely in your chart. So in Trump's case, it actually that conjunction actually occurred exactly on his MC. And what's really cool about Trump is we actually have a very well timed chart with fairly reliable data. So it's we can definitely bring it up at some point. But
So if I'm not mistaken, the MC
pretty
is like
intense.
the high point of your chart.
So it's not the highest point, but it is where the north-south meridian intersects with the ecliptic. So the MC carries this vibe with it of being a very public thing, what you tend to be known for. So for
Okay.
that conjunction to happen on exactly conjunct Trump's MC, this is something that is going to be known for. And the fact that it was so freaking public, it's like,
Yeah,
wow.
suspiciously
Even
public. I'll
even
say
if
it's
even
worth
if
pointing out. Hold on. Sorry. I just want to point out that was the only Trump rally ever streamed by CNN. They never did one
oh,
before. They just happened to catch that one and publish that one, broadcast that one to the masses. Not even that big of a rally either. So,
interesting.
just keep that in mind. It was meant to be seen, or that's some kind of crazy cosmic coincidence lining up with his MC. But I have my doubts.
I wonder what would have happened if the shooter had been successful. Like, I think of something like that, if it had been successful, for the shooter anyway, or for whoever wanted him dead, that would have sparked off a civil war straight up, 100%, which is Mars Uranus conjunction all the way, right? So, anyway, I think that staged or not staged, it worked out for the best. So
Let's let Gabe in on this. He's chomping.
he's chomping. Yeah, I can see it.
So the Kabbalah News Network, CNN is the Kabbalah News Network, and CNN in septenary is a 311. And there's a whole lot of hullabaloo around the 311. Generally, encodes lying or deception. There's a lot of words that equal 113 or 311, and they like divorce, deception. These words have that value in gematria. So that's fascinating. Um, and some of my reads on this key moment of shooting from a distance, kind of a cowardly hiding attack vector. It is in the epics when Paris shoots Achilles in his heel from up on the walls of Troy. Paris is shooting from a cowardly high location, and Achilles takes the hit in the. This is the kill shot of Achilles. This is his final moment, and he yells up to Paris what a coward he is. And this acrimony between them is the difference between spearsmanship is doing it yourself up close personal so you can actually feel the results of your deeds, and archery was taking off technologically and was going to take over the world, and that was what Paris was using. And so in the Enneagram, that does map out. I'm not going to bogart everything. I just want to map it real quick. But Uranus is in sixth position at the end of the spear, the Hornavian group of Gabriel, the 263 group. Uh, Paris is in the position of number 6, which is Apollo with a shadow of fear, but Uranus is here too. And then Achilles is number 1 personality type with the Mars aspect. So Achilles is like Mars, number 1 with the shadow of wrath, and Paris is like Uranus, kind of, because of that hidden reticence that he has. So that dialogue that Achilles yells at Paris as an insult for being a coward for using archery, it resonates, and it's important because Paris made the decision of the apple of discord that kicked off the Trojan War, and right now Paris just launched a Discordian spell to make everybody pissed off. So yeah, Paris and the apple of discord. Um, just one more quick thing. The apple of discord was rolled in for the 3 goddesses, Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite, to fight over. And right now we have some goddesses on the world stage that are going to fight for the mantle. Um, Big Mike, Kamala Harris, and I see Tulsi Gabbard as very Athenian. She's Athena. Uh, Kamala Harris is Hera, and then Aphrodite is Aphrodite. That's Big Mike, y'all. Big Mike got something hiding under that dress. All right.
That's so funny. I actually think that's really interesting that you bring up the goddess aspect, bringing Venus back into the picture again. So Venus becoming visible again in the evening sky. Right as she's coming visible, she's squaring Uranus, which, just to remind you guys how astrology works, especially for the newbies in the chat, when you have any kind of a big aspect happening, the sign that it's in is really important, not just because it flavors the thing that's happening, but also because the condition of the ruler of the sign says a lot about how that event is going to unfold. So with Mars Uranus happening in Taurus, Venus, where Venus was and what Venus was doing really colors the picture in another way. So Venus now becoming visible, it's like the ripple of that event are just beginning to take the stage, so to speak. So it's interesting that you bring up 3 different ladies, because Venus becoming visible is like, okay, which of those 3 ladies is going to really take that Uranus spark and run with it? So that's really funny. Also, Afro Mikey, that's funny. Oh, Gabe.
Okay, let's let you keep going with some of the astrology that you were on before we had to comment.
So much astrology. Okay, so when I look at something like this happening, so let's say Trump had come to an astrologer and was like, talk to me about this event. Not saying he would, but let's say he did. Ronald Reagan, by the way, actually used an astrologer quite a lot. But anyway, let's say he did, and he's like, hey, tell me about this event. What happened? Well, the first thing I look at, you can pull up his chart now, Chance, pretty please. The first thing that I look at as a Hellenistic astrologer is, first of all, what year is he in? What's his profection year? So in the middle circle here, this is Trump's chart. And the outer circle with the orange, that's the transits of the moment of the shot. So first of all, I don't have it up on the screen, but he's actually in his 7th house profection year, which means that his time lord for the year is actually Saturn. So Saturn in his chart is placed in the 12th in Cancer. So this actually is not good for Trump. To be in a Saturn ruled year in and of itself has a lot of there tends to be more and more obstacles that come up that you have to kind of fight through. Saturn in his chart being in Cancer is opposite from the place that it rules. Therefore, we say that it is debilitated. So it is a not a nice year for someone like this, right? This means that he has more things to fight through, but it also tells me that the ruler of the house of open enemies and business partners, being in his 12th house, being the time lord of the year, that there are open enemies that are hiding, okay? So this is something that I would have to try. The deep state. It could be. Who knows? But anyway, this is something that I would have to try and tell him gently, right? But like, hey, look, some of the people that you're partnering with, they don't have your best interests in mind, and you have to watch out for that, okay? This particular aspect was, how do you say, like, just in communication with Saturn, right? So yeah, it's considered a nice aspect. This is called a sextile, by the way. It's considered a harmonious, nice aspect. And to me, I actually read that as somebody that is hiding, that doesn't have his best interests in mind, whether it be someone that he's openly partnered with or not. This benefited them in some way, right? The other thing that's really, really striking about the conjunction for his chart in particular, other than it being right on the MC, is that it exactly squared his natal Mars, which is in his 1st house. So Mars in the 1st house being aspected by a Mars-Uranus conjunction, that to me spells injury to the body. The 1st house being your body and Mars being obviously an injury. The fact that he lived is insane to me. Like, that's really wild. I forget what I saw initially that was like, oh, okay, that could be kind of like a saving grace kind of thing. I mean, Venus being next to Saturn, sure, it's kind of weak, but yeah, those are the kind of the main things that really like pop out at me when I look at his chart for this moment.
So there's a lot there that makes the whole thing look like a plausible event. You know, that was the
Totally.
first thing I did when this happened was I went to you and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, tell me what you're seeing here. But is there anything in it that can account for the weird inconsistencies that are there? Say you were trying to maybe argue from the side of a type of deception or a type of theater going on. You know, just on that angle of things, do you see anything that might support the possibility of this being more on the appearances level but not on the actual level?
I would want to see more Neptune. Okay, so if I were to look at it from that angle, you could say that transiting Venus, right? Remember that Venus rules Taurus, where the conjunction took place. Transiting Venus is in a sextile to Neptune. So there is a little bit of like a Neptunian influence specifically for him. But does that say staged and fake, or does that say lucky? I don't know. It's hard to say. The other thing I would want to see is I would want to see like a debilitated Mercury or Mercury retrograde or Mercury under the beams of the sun. But we don't see that. We see Mercury very strongly placed as an evening star, very visible, very far away from the sun. And not at all slowing down. Like Mercury now is slowing down to turn retrograde, so I don't see that. I would want to see. Yeah, I would want to see transiting Neptune maybe making some major aspect, and it's not aspecting anything in the chart. Actually, hold on, let me bring up just the transits. Let me look at that. So this is what I like to do when an event goes down. Before I look at how it affects somebody's chart, I like to look at what the moment says, right? Where's the moon? What's the moon aspecting? That kind of stuff. So let's just let it load for a second on my ancient laptop.
Yeah, because a lot of people get immediately when an event like this happens, it's the classic problem reaction solution where a lot of people talking about it seem like they know the answer already before there's even been a day past. And everyone's like, you know, it's the deep state, they're trying to take them out. But it seems like the worst assassination attempt of all time. And when you factor in like the whole security failures that are total nonsense and how public the security failures aspect of it is, and that if you really wanted to defeat a dude like Trump, you would want to make sure that it succeeded. And why would you do it publicly and make somebody a martyr and cause more support for their side of things? You know, like there's reasons to wonder about if this really happened. It would have to actually be the surface level story that it was like some lone dude acting alone foolishly, right? But then there's all the ties that the tie that he has back to BlackRock, which is very odd. And
Totally.
you know, so to me, when I saw it happen the day of, I was like, these look like jocks in high school that got put up on stage for a theater production, and they're not very good at it. Like the way that it all, you know, move when they're doing the whole song and dance. And this is a dude that's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's used blood packets before, you know, and we gotta factor in that the ear is perfect and undamaged and has been for the last week of appearances. As soon as the ear diaper came off, there was no visible blemish or damage to the ear. And it's like, nobody cares. Does anybody care? Like, is he Wolverine? There's a movie coming out at the same time about an assassin, which is Deadpool, and Wolverine, who heals from anything instantly. You know, it's all too much for me. And I'm not saying I know. I'm not making claims. I'm not saying I know what happened at all, but I'm just asking questions because not a lot of people are asking any of these questions. And I see a lot of concerning stuff going on with, you know, the eternal enantiodromia between left and right, where they inevitably just reverse. And it happens, you know, it'll happen many more times in our lifetimes, I'm sure. But as soon as this event happened, all of a sudden it's, you know, just like go back, let's back up. During 9/11, it was the Democrats that were the conspiracy theorists. They're like, they weren't buying it because it was happening under a Republican regime, right? And then in recent years, it's the Democrats, the left, that are completely opposed to like anything conspiracy theory related. They're totally pro big pharma, corporations, the whole nine, trusting the government. And it's the right that's like conspiracies, calling everything fake news. But now that this thing happens, there are talking heads on this, you know, fake right that are saying that if you question the events of this narrative, that you should be fined or you should be censored or all of this stuff. All the things that the left had been saying about anybody that questions cooties and other related ops. So they're just totally flipping sides. Now all of a sudden, you know, the mainstream is all fake news, can't be trusted, except this one thing. Trust that it happened exactly as it's being reported in the news. And I'm just like, does anybody see how weird this is? It's so weird. And the thing about it that can tie back to astrology as a question for you is, what about this transit or just the general astrological climate would suggest the thing that at least I noticed and other people kind of energetically sensitive noticed, that like my friend Eileen McCusick, you know, noticing that our boundary to the vibe of the collective got seriously violated that day. Like whether or not we wanted to care about an event or anything, it was a visceral feeling of like an invading bad energy. And I'm sure other people felt it too. Very similar to other PSYOP days like 9/11, like when lockdowns began, things of that nature. So that's where I'm at with all of it. I'm just like, what is going on?
Fair enough. And I think, I think there are definitely certain astrological transits that can have that kind of effect, especially if there is a lot of publicity around them and whatever news events happen on that day. Like 9/11, actually, that's a really good example, especially since 9/11 actually just came up in the news again today. Some of the alleged people that were involved are putting up a plea deal, I just read. Anyway, not the point. So that particular astrological transit that happened at the same time as that had to do with a Pluto transit, if I remember correctly. But anyway, just the astrological transit itself is one thing, but then people's psyche and the egregore that we create around those kinds of things, I believe that also becomes a big thing that really, yeah, exactly. Go full throttle emotion, regardless of how the ear looks, right? 100%. Yeah, so then if something's really publicized and we're told to have a certain emotion about it, and it's put in our face over and over and over again, I think that really builds the energy. Like with 9/11, I remember, just to bring it back one more time, being in school, and they had TVs on the rollers, and they rolled a TV in, and we watched live footage of people fucking dying in elementary school. So like that is going to create a pretty big collective trauma, regardless of how the events went down. So there's
I gotta comment on Yvonne's comment.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This is something. Ask my wife. Ask Jenny. Okay, the day it happened, I was like, Revelation 13, the beast will be wounded in the head, and then the wound will be healed, and the people will marvel at the beast. And I was like, he's gonna come back, and whatever wound this is gonna look perfect and undamaged, and people aren't going to care, or people are going to like notice or something. I was like, I called that because I'm not saying that it's like actual prophecy, but it is like a playbook. It's totally a playbook.
Do you have, or does anybody in the chat have any like decently high definition pictures post diaper coming off of that ear? All I've seen are grainy images and like half covered by hair images, but if anybody's got anything, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, dig them up in the add them to
Dig
the
'em
Vibrant
up.
Colin
Dig
line.
'em
I'm sure
up.
I can find one. I want to
For
let
sure.
Gabe get in on this real quick, but I
Yeah,
still want to
Gabe, I
return
see
to
you
the question
chomping.
of like that sort of collective energy piercing the personal bubble when we
Totally.
can.
Yeah, man. I love that you brought up the Wolverine automatic healing. The rapid pace healing is a characteristic that both Deadpool and Wolverine share. I think Deadpool inherited it from the experiment that made Wolverine. And just to bring a lot of things to the table in terms of that cinematic telemetry data, uh, Deadpool is clearly Mars. You pull that mask off, and he's got those pock marks all over him, and he's Scar face. Olymp Mons is the scar on Mars, and his girlfriend's name is Vanessa. His girlfriend is Vanessa, but now he has a new love for this yellow and blue man. So there's some homoerotica of a new Venus in his life, but that yellow and blue is also the colors of the Ukraine flag. So in a way, Deadpool is like Russia, old Russia, with their old Russian flag, and Ukraine is much like Wolverine. And I think it's important to consider not only like that the stars kind of determine these outcomes, but also our culture and what we call predictive programming might be working more to cause the event to happen than preparing us to see it a certain way. I'm open to that. And something I don't think people have thought of is what if Mr. Crook was an amazing shot? And what if he was put up there to miss exactly in the way that he missed? And his intention was successful. What if he was aiming for the ear? I don't think people have thought of that third option. And you can't say that it was not staged. You would lying to yourself because it happened on a stage. And you can't say it wasn't orchestrated because it was an ear castrated event. He was ear castrated. So there's something beautiful and poetic in the light of giving more credit to the mystic powers.
That and just the very commonplace English idiom of to turn something on its ear is an expression that relates to causing great excitement or sensationalism or shock. And then there's that whole thing in the Old Testament about after a slave has finished their indentured servitude, but they want to remain a slave, they get tagged in the ear. They get pierced in the ear. That's an Old Testament thing. And, he's got some ties with some Old Testament vibes. You know what I'm
Totally.
saying?
Totally. I have heard that theory before, Gabe, and actually there's a YouTube channel that I like to follow called Garang Garang Thumb. I'm mispronouncing it. But anyway, I can pull it up. But anyway, they did do some demonstrations using the same model and type of firearm that the shooter allegedly had, and a much more high-powered, more accurate one. And neither of them, from that distance, could be accurate enough to pull off that kind of a shot. Garand Thumb, thank you. Garand Thumb. Clump knows what's up. But it's definitely an interesting theory for sure. But yeah. Anyway, just I had to put that in there.
All right, cool. Let's do more astrology if that's all right. I don't usually like to do current events type shows, but this is just one of those like generational psyops that's probably worth helping people see other angles at, right?
It's big news. I mean, even if you didn't want to talk current events, like how do you not talk about it? It's the biggest news of the day from that particular conjunction. So like every astrologer has got it written down of like, holy shit, this thing happened. Yeah, and also what's really fascinating about it is it aspected that particular conjunction aspected Kamala Harris's chart, Biden's chart, like a whole bunch of really public figures. It aspected their charts as well, just not on such a not on such a public point, I would say. So, and I have their
Well,
charts pulled up too, so
the
I'm
the old
ready.
friend of mine that died during this conjunction. A little more about that was speaking to the Martian aspect of it and the rebellion Uranus aspect of it was like the way I would characterize this guy was aggressively anarchist. Anyone that's listened to Mark Passio and knows that sort of like big fu to the man and hating on statists and calling all people that wear a uniform order followers and all that, and like there's a dehumanization factor with it. And I'm bummed that this dude lost his life, but part of what made us grow apart as friends was that I had a phase where I was ideologically anarchist. It's reflected on this podcast. Then, I continued to progress forward and I still appreciate natural law. I still appreciate, a lot of the philosophy of anarchy. I don't diss anybody for still being in that mindset, but I came to a place of like, you know what? Freedom is intrinsic to our soul and it doesn't matter what the big machine does. Babylon be there for people that want to play Babylon games or put out the vibe of needing to be controlled by trying to control or do harm to others, right? So like I no longer will go around saying to people government is slavery because I'm not a slave. Slavery is a choice. Slavery is a state of consciousness, period. And anyway, this old friend, he couldn't get past, for many years, couldn't get past the government is slavery mindset and had been arrested for things in the past, like going on jogs through neighborhoods with an assault rifle strapped to his back. So like there's volatility there. And to get into an altercation with the police and the aggression energy he probably had, like I just wish he could have learned about verbal judo from us, maybe before all that went down. And the police officers being investigated for, like they always are whenever there's a fatal shooting. But it's just crazy that would happen during the conjunction. And then in hindsight, I can see that the timing of it lined up perfectly.
It really, I'm sorry about your friend. That really sucks. Well, it sucks to lose anybody, regardless of how far away you've drifted over time. But I'd be really curious with how you're describing him about like what some of his placements were, and like it's terrible. It's terrible. That's where my mind goes first. I'm like, damn, what was aspecting that in his chart, or how did that resonate with his chart for that to happen? Because like I brought up before, the shooter, or at the very least the gentleman that they're blaming the shooting on, has a Mars Uranus conjunction in his chart as well, and he died that day too. So yeah, whether he was the shooter, whether we're blaming it on him, doesn't really matter. He died and he has that conjunction as well. So it's just yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I don't have that info.
Interesting and terrible, but yeah.
Yeah, and he had lots of good qualities and was a loving person in a lot of ways. So I'll miss him. All right, Gabe, you're tag. You're it.
Man, buddy, I was thinking about the verbal judo. I'm so glad you brought that up. Something that I think we put that forward in the spirit of is kind of the spirit of playfulness, maintaining your sovereignty, but not getting out of hand and not getting violent. There are so many options before, violent resistance is even on the table. And so many options. It's infinite. There's all the options. You could just run circles with some of the things we put forward. I'm glad you mentioned that because that was on my mind. And I want to just kind of put out, Kaylee, you mentioned some news around 9/11 recently. And also there was a it's not the Supreme Court, but District 9 uh, made a ruling that forced vaccinations are not constitutional. And that came out, but it didn't get the airplay it needed to get because of all of the clamor over all the sensationalism. But there was a big win around District 9 for bodily sovereignty. And that happened, but it didn't get the airplay. And I just want to mention that I have been claiming since the beginning of my project that Kings County in New York is a target that the International Court wants to come and put one of their courts on American soil. And they have been drooling over District 9, Kings County, all along. And this is a checkmate. If they get it, it's checkmate. And so that is a pressure point. That is a crucial pressure point. In all of my projects of the magics that work in our psyche, I believe they've been trying to lockpick that location to put one of their international courts on our soil. And that's a big fat no-go. There's going to be a lot of buzz around. And then one thing I wanted to say that was strange, I don't think I can ever commit to being decided like that there's one side or the other, but I am committed to reveal the potency of our art forms informing events over time. And something that occurred to me after the ear castrated event is, which is funny. I love calling it that because I'm not saying it was an orchestrated event. It's just undeniable that it was an ear castrated event that we cannot deny. But a fun thing that came to my mind, synchronistically speaking, is that RFK represents speak no evil. Biden represents see no evil because he is the king of shades. And now the dynamic trio is complete because pew, 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 Donald Trump is hear no evil. And there is something very, very magical about the completion of that truth. And so I just offer that up that I do believe that they are all in cahoots, but I think they are obligated to tip their hand to those who know. And so that's kind of a 40,000 foot purview that, yeah, they're all in on this together. And this is, and it's working. It's actually working, and that's a little concerning. So I think it's incumbent on us to take the passion out of the sails just a bit so everybody can slow their roll and, pay attention to the signs and the symbols on the road.
Okay. The other thing about the event that I had in mind was this Senate hearing that was on yesterday or the day before. And I caught part of it where Lindsey Graham, the senator, was questioning an FBI guy. And he's like, in a very convoluted way, this is a court proceeding. He's asking, is there any doubt in the FBI's mind whether or not President Trump was shot in the ear with a bullet? And so first of all, first problem with the question is the FBI does not have a mind. So it's a problematic way of phrasing the question. But what gave me the heebie-jeebies was the answer from this FBI guy was, there is no doubt in the FBI's... No, that's not the answer. The answer was, there is no doubt whether or not Trump was shot. I'm paraphrasing. But the verb, the action of the sentence was, there's no doubt whether or not he was shot. And everyone just took that as an affirmative. But what he really said is, there is no doubt whether or not he was shot. He did not answer the question. So in the future, he could potentially fight against perjury if it came out that it was like staged. I mean, this is like courtroom word wizardry. There's no doubt whether or not he was shot. And that was the answer. And then they went on from there. Like that, to me, I'm like, is this a reveal? What is up with that answer? Anyway, You can go find it. Okay, I'm
Legalese
sorry. It was
101.
Senator John Kennedy. Thanks, Jenny. I'm not hip to my senators. Thank you. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's wild. Um, I also heard there was a bit of some confusion between who was it, Christopher Wray and somebody else, whether it was shrapnel or a bullet, and they were like arguing over the pedantics of that. Was it shrapnel or was it a bullet, or was it shrapnel of a bullet? Like, honestly, doesn't matter, but maybe it does. Maybe it does.
Okay, take us more into the collective aspects, Kaylee. I was doing a I Ching toss about it. I was curious.
Yeah. What
What
did
else
your
you-
I Ching tell us? Did it tell you anything?
Oh man. Well, it's interesting. I wasn't super specific with my question. It was just about the event, like what the event represents, and I got the progress hexagram. So that's about advancing something forward, gaining recognition and appreciation. So essentially, like in terms of if this was if it was asking about, what is Trump's role in all this, or what does this mean for Trump? It is very clear that like he gained a lot from this event. There was a huge gain in appreciation and recognition from that event. So, I Ching is on the money with that part. But I don't know about the increased clarity element of progress. I'm not feeling clarity. Okay, Gabe, get in.
I guess I got something on the progress. Trump is absolutely, unquestionably an accelerationist. The
100%.
accelerationists, they have the acronym ACC. Yeah, 100%.
He's got Mars
and
Leo in
that
his first
is
house. Like,
exemplified. Yep. Yeah.
sorry.
And when he called it Operation Warp Speed, they go into plaid and then but never go full retard, you know. So yeah, Warp Speed was like hail to the accelerationists. So yeah, those of you who are familiar with Nick Land and some of those heads, they definitely. I think your card was picking up on that, Chance.
Massive. Yeah, progressivism. Okay, for real though, I'm kicking it to you, Kaylee. I wanna talk about the collective aspects of that transit, and then maybe even, if we want to weave on upcoming stuff that you find interesting.
Um, how do we weave it into the collective? Why? Well, actually, I'm really more interested in how it affected people on the personal level. Like I love
That's what I
talking about
mean. Like the way
political
that the collective
okay.
energy pierced the personal bubble for so many people.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you have a very piercing planet, and then another one that represents like lightning and sudden things and earthquakes and shit like that coming together on a fixed star that is traditionally associated with like a demonic energy. Like that's pretty intense. But there's a few things that I did want to say about Algol in particular, since we haven't even touched on it yet, and you use it as like the background, Medusa's head. So, so let's bring that in just a little bit. So, Algol and Medusa's head, there's two or three ways to look at this star. Now, I've heard sidereal astrologers, two in particular actually, that speak of Algol actually as a financial star. So there's definitely a thread to pull there with who gained from such a sudden, shocking, violent, or seemingly violent and bloody event happening, and how much did they gain financially from that thing. There's definitely something to pull there. And if you were quick on the markets, or you had an inkling or an intuitive nudge or some insider information about what might have happened that day, you could have definitely been a big gainer or a big loser. if the opposite were true. And then the other two ways that are more important, I feel, for us on a personal level is algol, yes, is associated with this demonic energy, algol, alcohol, losing your head, all of those wonderful, beautiful images. But there's actually a protective nature to algol as well, because after Perseus beheads Medusa, it is used as a shield, right? So algol is actually protective in nature if we use it consciously. So how I'm more interested, honestly, about these kinds of things is how can we take something like that and turn it into a protective thing. So it's really interesting to me that you bring up this idea or this feeling that a lot of people had of their psyche and their space and their energetic field being pierced. It's almost like they needed to put up more protections, more psychic or energetic protections leading up to that kind of an event or conjunction. Not even just the event, the conjunction itself. So yeah, like I think astrology can be a really helpful thing when we see something like that coming up. We can take more steps to protect ourselves and to guard ourselves. So I think like just moving forward, when we see something crazy coming up, do a little bit more of that. Like, for example, I'll actually talk a little bit about the last time the Mars-Uranus conjunction occurred. I went camping that weekend, and I had a lot of anxiety leading up to that conjunction, okay? Tons of anxiety. I wasn't sure if I was even going to go camping because it was like, holy crap, Mars, Uranus, and Rahu, this is insane. But what I ended up saying to people and what I ended up doing myself was I just took a few extra precautions. And I'm glad that I did, because there ended up being a freaking tornado like a kilometer away from where we were camping that weekend. But we were okay because we ended up having, we had a safe space to get into, and I wasn't camping alone. And I actually heard from a few other people that they had vehicle issues that day, but because they had heeded my advice, they had the extra stuff with them to deal with it. So I don't know. There's so many ways. there's so many ways you can take this. You can get really anxious when you see a certain transit come up, and then hide in your home.
Dude, the movie Twisters came out within a week of the conjunction too.
Did they really?
Yeah, Twisters.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it. There's a ton of movies that come out that are like really close to different astrological transits, which is a really fun study. But yeah, so you can get really anxious with it, or you can get a little bit more protective with it. And personally, I didn't put much stock into the algol conjunction myself, and I think that if I had been a little bit more cautious about that, I might have been a little bit more proactive in my approach. But then at the same time, like in my personal life, nothing happened. Nothing happened. I was playing video games. My phone was dead. So like I heard from somebody else that, oh, Trump got shot. And I had no idea. I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to hang out. And like for me personally, it was a nothing burger. But for somebody else, like your friend, you know, it wasn't a nothing burger for them. So yeah.
So Chance, that's wild. You just mentioned the Twisters. I was on a random thought just yesterday on my walk, and I was remembering that I was in a play in middle school, Oliver Twist. And in the strangest way, you know, these things do. The narcissist in us takes it internally, you know, and sometimes it reflects back on things that I totally forgot I was in that play. I was a very mild role, but I played actually like 4 characters, all side characters. But the coolest part of my role was I was the police officer who comes out at the grand finale, and I actually got to shoot the bad guy off the rooftop. And I had a gun, a real gun with blanks. Maybe it was a racing pistol. I think it was a racing pistol. And on every day that we performed the play, I just shot him one time, and that was good enough. And the crowd would cry out. It was real, effective. But on the last grand finale, he and I worked it out that I was going to unload all the caps in him. And so he would stand up there and take like 6 different hits. And I was like, blam, blam, blam. And I unloaded on him. It was just weird because as I was thinking about that, it was like just thinking about Oliver Twist. There's Oliver Twist and the twist in the plot and the watershed moment. That's really fascinating that you mentioned that. And I just want to map out Perseus as it relates to, there's actually a shield at 180 degrees, Kaylee. Perseus is generally, I know that I do my zodiac the opposite of how you guys do. And you
That's
probably
okay.
have seen that before. But so Perseus is right between Aries and Taurus, and so close to Auriga, the charioteer. They're so close to each other. So the Algol star really marks the space here between, Aries and Taurus. And then 180 degrees across the zodiac is the Scutum constellation. And that is a shield. It's actually a tiny little shield, and it's right next to the harp of Lyra. But that 180 relationship is a mirror, just like Perseus needed to use the mirror to see the Demigorgon. Well, sure enough, Auriga is kind of a Demigorgon. Auriga sometimes is depicted with lizard legs. So it's very apropos that the cosmodrama is sustained in the heavens. But also that relationship, that particular angle between Perseus and down here, essentially around Ophiuchus and Scorpio, those are the 2 lunar standstill neighborhoods as well. So they have an anode cathode, and they often have a chain. The chain signifies the lunar standstill, where the centripetal force of movement reaches its apex and then has to come back. And so that chain is always signifying lunar standstills, which is an 18.6 cycle. When 2 thelemites come together, they say 93, 93. 93 times 2 is 186. So they're encoding the lunar standstill cycle. And Napoleon, his entire biography is based on the monotonic cycles, all hailing to the lunar standstills.
I want to read a little bit about this Algol star because PK put a link to this website, Constellation of Words. I didn't know about this website. PK's just always got incredible sources, though. Love that. Okay, so Algol, the demon or the demon star, and the blinking demon from the Arabians Raz Al Ghul, which is a Batman character. The demon's head, Raz Al Ghul, is said to have been called thus from its rapid and wonderful variations. I guess that it blinks. I'm not going to read all this because there's a lot going on, but there's some interesting stuff here. The Hebrews knew Algol as Rosh HaSatan, Satan's head. That's kind of interesting because during that conjunction, or like abouts, I was also deep into a lot of research for an Inner World episode with Dylan where we're talking about the devil. So I'm in there talking about the devil. Astrologers said it was the most unfortunate, violent, and dangerous star in the heavens. And Algol represents the head of the Gorgon Medusa, who was slain by Perseus. Yeah. Okay, here's what's kind of interesting is if Algol is with Mars, if Mars be elevated above the luminaries when Algol is angular, the native will be a murderer who will come to an untimely end. That's interesting. And if it's with benefic planets, or with, I think it says with Jupiter. Where's this at? Yeah, that they would bring. If in conjunction with Sun, Moon, or Jupiter, it gives victory over others in war. Interesting. Well, I don't know enough about astrology to really read a lot about this, but it's interesting to find out the names of it from other cultures. That's a good resource. Thank you, PK.
Yeah, I like looking at those too. Yeah, so when you're reading passages like that from ancient texts, uh, it takes a bit to decipher them. But that first one you were reading about when Mars is with Algol, that would be in reference to somebody's native chart, right? Their nativity, or the inception of an event. So anyway, when Mars is with alcohol, and then the other part of that sentence, what did it say? When it's above the luminaries, so that would mean that both sun and moon would have to be below Mars in some way. I would have to read it and look at it, but yeah, it takes a bit to decipher those texts because it's like they're written. A lot of them are written in like riddles, and you have to sit with it for a bit and pull it apart. And like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? It's a it's a trip. Yeah.
Okay,
I
Caleb,
got
you want
I got a
to?
little nugget.
Oh, you go, Gabe. You got it.
Yeah, I got one nugget on Ras Satan. Um, in the Ars Goetia, there is a segment of those writings that is not very interesting. It's not sensational, so it doesn't get a lot of attention. It's very redundant, and it is something of a prescriptive augury reading based on birth defects that seem to be incredibly common at the time of the book's writing. So common that there is also a mention of Lilith and the demon star, and they don't call it what we call it today. So there's a gap in the receipts here. But I interpret the aspects of using the birth defects as auguries is really elaborate. I mean, that's why it's boring because and people don't get much out of it. But it's so detailed that it even says a child born with one left ear missing means that the crops will go bad within a couple weeks. But if it's a right ear that's missing, then the king should go on a campaign and he'll be successful. And it's just absurd how detailed the birth defects seem to be and how common they were. And then they're also talking about chaos in the heavens. It appears as though there was a nebula erupting out of the Algol star and literally causing some sort of radiation to affect the babies. And even, I mean, we don't even need the radiation to be actually affecting people. It could be just the fear of seeing something in the heavens acting wrathfully that would cause the women to have birth defects commonly. And then the gossip and the buzz of that and the sensationalism builds on it. And sure enough, you're going to have babies coming out not healthy. And a lot of mamas, their stress is going to yield these results that they were taking as auguries and blaming it on the star. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy thing. But it's crazy how detailed and important it was to them.
Now, another thing, Kayla, you just mentioned how a lot of these old texts that get into the real nitty gritty of astrological specifics, how they're very riddle like, and maybe some of the information is concealed unless you can decode that. And that just is the old deal of the sacred and the profane with this kind of knowledge. And is it possible that there are qualities to Algol or things that you could do with an Algol conjunction that would not really be common knowledge to the plebs or to internet searchers or, regular astrologers? Because just on the symbolic level, right? If everything's symbolic, Algol's nickname is the Winking Demon. And on the whole deception tip, right? Ha ha. It's like the wink is for the people who are paying attention and they know they're in on the joke. They get the joke. And it's like there's lots of things about this situation that if you're paying attention, it feels like you're getting winked at, like the Wolverine ear miraculous healing. So maybe the winking part of this whole demon star is relevant to the equation. Who knows?
Maybe. I forget what I was gonna say. I just pulled off of the shelf one of my. Actually, this was a gift. This book that I'm looking at right now was actually a gift from some of the people in, I believe it was the Spider-Verse actually. It's it was actually one of the first ones that I got that was specifically an old translation. It's the Astrological Works of Theophilus of Edessa. I got this one specifically because he was a war astrologer, and I'm like, battle mage, hell yeah. But he has a lot of stuff in here about the timing for the inception of a war or sieges, and what conditions to look for to see if a slave will successfully break free from a tyrant, and like what are the intentions when you cast a chart for the moment when you receive a letter, like things like that. And yeah, I just wanted to see if he had anything in here about fixed stars, specifically to do with war, because that would be really interesting. But I feel like that is something that I shouldn't do live on stream, but I might look it up later and see if there's anything in there just for fun.
I have a selfish question for Kaylee.
Oh,
You know, getting away from all of this other theatrics and circus.
selfish questions are fun.
The
I want to
the
talk about
secret circus.
babies, okay? Like, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
you're like,
Yeah,
hey,
me
let's
too.
talk about scary things, and I'm like, but babies.
No, let's totally
Chance.
switch gears here. Let's have fun. So,
Hell yeah.
first of
babies.
all, I want to say thanks on the air to a very awesome Stacy P. Sent us this sweet card, you know, with the stork on it, and a very kind maternity donation. We'll say it's really kind, and I'm really, really excited to receive this love packet. So thank you, Stacy. It's a great card, and the gift was really appreciated. And we'll let you know personally too, but I wanted to say that. Now today I had a great day. I read an entire book for a show that I'm doing tomorrow, and then I built our forthcoming baby's crib. I assembled the crib, and it said in the instructions requires 2 people, and I did the work of 2 people as one.
Heck yeah,
so-
Chance.
Maybe
Baby
you could tell
cribs.
me about, like, you know, what's is my chart reflective of becoming a dad this year, or any other elements of babies? You said you want to talk about babies. Let's do that. Everyone's
Hell yeah.
having babies this year.
Yeah, dude, so many people are having babies this year. It's insane. I'm just going to close all the politicians' charts because they suck. And we're done with that.
I'm done.
We're done with that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But before we move on, you bring up some really excellent points, and I appreciate the people that dropped links to pictures of the healed ear. The only ones that I had seen were the grainy ones, so I really appreciate the collective efforts of everybody being like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? I love you guys for that. Chance, I don't have your chart in front of me at the moment. What's your birth data?
Oh Jesus! I guess I'm already kind of a public figure. I don't
You're
care.
pretty public. I mean, you could.
No, I'm not scared.
Okay.
Bring it on. 3/22/89.
Oh, 89. Right.
Yeah. Oh, and this is fun. I've not looked at my chart since I found out that I actually was born at 2:10 p.m., not 2:08 p.m.
We had the wrong time.
By 2 minutes. For years, I've had the wrong time.
Sorry,
Probably not a major difference, but it is a little different.
Could be a big difference. Springfield.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Joe Potter was in high school.
In 89. I
I'm
wasn't
not
even
giving my
born
social
yet.
security number, Micmac. We don't call it that anyway. We don't call it a sin. We're not Canadians.
Yeah. Yeah. Way to give away where you're from, man. Yeah. A sin number. Isn't that insane? My sin number just kills me.
No, it's not even sin number. Number is part of the acronym. So
Right,
it's just
sorry,
my
wrong
sin.
number.
This is my sin. I'm sinning. It's ridiculous.
Pulling up.
Wonder what
chart.
Clint
Okay.
Richardson makes of that.
Oh man, right?
Rick Bonner.
So, Chance, just a quick synchronicity. Uh, we're moving from the crab, and there is a crib in between the crab and the lion, and there's a baby lion as well. So there is literally a crib star inside of the crab, and then the baby lion is just above Leo. So it's so apropos that you made your crib just as we move into the baby lion. I'm feeling that. That's very synchronous. Great timing.
Aw.
Oh yeah, I found out from another Canadian difference is they call slug bug when they punch you, they call it punch buggy. It's slug
You
bug
have a
here.
different phrase for that? What the fuck?
Yeah, we say slug bug. And then we
That's
say
punch
no
buggy.
slug backs.
What the fuck? The more you learn. The more you learn.
Yeah, well the one that I can't get over is that Canadians call colored pencils pencil crayons.
They're pencil
They are
crayons.
not, they are not crayons.
But they're pencil crayons.
They're
Yeah.
not. They're colored pencils. I love you
But they're
Canadians,
pencils
but you're insane.
That are crayons. I mean, you're not wrong. We are pretty crazy. Um Okay, so couple of things that I see right off the bat. You can pull it up, by the way, if you want. So what I'm looking at in this wheel is your perfections. So from the date of your last birthday till your next birthday, you'll be in a 12th house year ruled by the moon. So moon is your time lord this year. So
Is
isn't
that why
fun?
I feel like my old self is about to die? I seriously feel like I'm not that I'm upset about becoming a dad, but there's this part of my ego that's like, feels like I'm marching to the gallows a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm totally in. I'm really excited, but there is that feeling in another sense.
Dude, 100%. Yeah.
Hasta
But yeah,
la
so
vista, baby.
yeah, so 12th house year can definitely feel like that for some people. I think it's actually way more important to note where your moon is. You have moon in Libra, right? You know this. I think most of your audience knows this as well. In your third house, and you'll probably recall that there have been eclipses on this axis. So that's very, very succinct to like my entire life is changing. That would be the eclipses happening right on top of your Time Lord. But also, there's this aspect of becoming a parent and being much more tied to the physical with the moon. If you were a woman, it'd be like, well, obviously, moon, momhood, but but it's a little different for it for the moon as a Time Lord being in a man's chart. Less about babies, more about feeling into just getting in tune with the feminine and what the feminine needs. But third house, I would be curious about how this year has been as far as like making connections locally with people, specifically to do with motherhood topics. Like, have you met any midwives or have you been talking to anybody in the local area that are here specifically to support Jenny in her journey? Because that would be very, very in tune with Moon, third house, as the Time
Yeah, we have a
Lord.
kick-ass local midwife team, birth team.
Hell yeah.
And
Yeah.
locally, also, there's just a bunch of pregnant people that we know around the same time. So there's
That's
kind of
really-
like a
yeah, that's
support
funny.
system has come out of the woodworks for sure.
That's cool. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And then yeah, just to bring the eclipses in, like the eclipses bring sudden endings and sudden beginnings, and with the moon being your 12th house lord, that definitely speaks to like shedding of old beliefs and really needing to take a little bit of time for yourself, right? So like yes, do the dad thing, put together the crib, keep the podcast going, be the provider, be the man, Leo roar roar roar. But don't forget to take some time for yourself too, right? Like keep up with your meditation practices, keep up with your own energy practices, because that's really important. In in order to stay strong for Jenny, for baby, that you take care of yourself too. Especially Moon in Libra, right? Like it can be so easy to want to.
We sent you voice messages last time the moon was in Libra. I was a
Yeah,
mess.
you did. Yeah, you did.
I couldn't
And
make
gave
any
you
decisions.
Perfect advice. It's like, maybe you should just let Jenny figuratively drive for a minute. And then it worked out, didn't it?
Yeah. I've become like just this total wish-washy flip-flopper sometimes on those days.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think that's hilarious. The other kind of like big transits that are happening right now that I see specifically around babies. Well, I mean, you did just have a Jupiter return, and Jupiter rules your 5th house of children and creativity.
Yeah, babies
So-
don't have the same Jupiter as me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Different degree, but yeah, that's really neat. You're in a
Also,
Mars
our due
return right
date-
now as we're talking, so that's kind of cool, actually. And we were
Check
talking
this
about all
out.
these Mars things.
Yeah, that's true. Of course. I am in a Mars return. But our due date is if the baby decided to come on a due date, which is likely because it's on a full moon, we get, 'cause people go into labor on full moons, right? We would get a baby with a sun sign in Libra and a moon sign in Aries, and I'm a sun sign in Aries and a moon sign in Libra. It would be so cool. But she
would
can
be
come
pretty
whenever she wants. But wouldn't that be cool?
That would be really cool. I shouldn't have clicked that button. I should have left it. Yeah. I am aggressively saving for a new laptop. I cannot wait, you guys. It's
I'm
gonna
just
be
glad to have you on the
lit.
air again. We shouldn't go so
Yeah, me
long
too.
without hangs.
I know. What
It's
the heck?
fun.
But yeah, Mars return is really interesting. We could talk about that off the air if you want, or on the air. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, the Jupiter return is really the big thing that's kind of like sticking out to me as far as like specifically children goes, because Jupiter rules your 5th. And a Jupiter return, I mean, every single Jupiter return won't be babies. That'd be insane. Because your first one happens when you're 11 years old and 8 months.
Okay,
11
so
right?
fifth house rules offspring.
Offspring, your creative endeavors, pleasure, sex, romance.
So like romantic relationships. Okay, so I'm having a Jupiter return. Jupiter brings like more, expand. So I'm
Yes.
getting more offspring. my
Babies.
My first.
Babies.
That's cool.
I love that. I love that. Now I would be a terrible astrologer if I didn't mention Jupiter being in Gemini and what that brings. They say that Jupiter in Gemini is a quote unquote debilitated placement. Now, I put that in quotes not because it's not true, but because it can be really easy to take something like that and be like, oh my God, that means my Jupiter is bad. No. It just means that your Jupiter is counterculture in some way. So because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, right? And he is in the sign opposite, speaking of mirror stuff, he's in the temple of Mercury. So Mercury is all about the fine details, the letter of the law, you could say. Jupiter is about the spirit of the law, the philosophy of the law. But he's in Mercury's temple. So while he wants to be about the big picture, he wants to be about the grand structure, the grand design of the thing, he has to use Mercury's tools of dividing and looking at the details and zooming in and dissecting the words. And I actually think this is a really cool placement because it's giving Jupiter way more tools than he could possibly use, which I think is beautiful, actually. So anyway, the Jupiter in Gemini in general is just, you have to go about your creative endeavors in a counterculture way. It's something that is unusual and weird and not the norm. And I actually think of your puzzles. You have these like super saturated,
Dude.
colorful puzzles. Well,
This is on the other
works of
screen,
art.
waiting for the opportunity to
Yeah.
share it.
shameless plug. Boop.
It's already
So, like,
there.
I think of your puzzles, and you can pull them up right now. I
Yeah,
think of
because
your
I
puzzles.
legit was going to, because Jenny added some new puzzles to the store.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, so
Hell
this is us doing one of the puzzles the other night, and it was so fun that Jenny went and added some more of my art to puzzles, so they're available on the merch store. I'll drop the link. But as you can see, it's a nice 500 piecer, which is not, it's enough that you can get lost in it, but you could also do it in one shot if you're ambitious. So let's see what's
Yeah, dude.
new.
I love that
segue.
because
I had this like locked and loaded. You're like amazing at segues. Thank you.
yeah, perfect. But yeah, like there's this crazy image, and there is actually a theme going through the entire thing, which is, you know, kind of Jupiterian, how there's a united kind of thing going on with them. But there's so many fine details, and you could look at the same image 10, 15, 20, 100 times and pick out something different from it, which is very mercurial in nature. So it's really cool how your your fifth house ruler kind of expresses like that. Yeah, so that's kind of neat. But anyway, babies.
This one's pretty sweet. Gabe, you want to comment? You're a dad.
Well, for one, I don't recognize these art pictures, but I do love that, I was with you when you were making some of your art back when we used to do the art read-alongs. It's kind of like uh, the whole Spider crew was kind of midwifing your brain babies in the time that you were creating.
Oh yeah,
So I
this
just
one.
love
I
that.
worked on
And
this one during those
another,
right here.
that's
It's
the
kind of
one. That
sideways.
one, I love that one. That's a favorite of mine. Yeah, buddy. And something else that's really fun is that I'm realizing is, I've always been kind of willy-nilly about art, and I've never really thought about syncopating a project to have a birth date and actually, putting a limit and a execution time into the formula of putting your project to completion. And something we're talking about over on my grand whiteboard brotherhood circuit is we're talking about uh, putting an intention into the world, completing a spell, if you will, and not looking back. Just putting all that passion into it, and once the execution is finished, just leave it behind and move forward with your life. And the returns will come in ways that you did not expect because you've detached from the commitment that you made for that spell to be born in the perfect timing and under the right alignment. So that's something that's really big for me right now. I got a move coming forward, and I plan on executing on a very narrow window. And once that's done, there's no going back. And that lesson of, when the deed is done, don't waste your time with regrets or wishing you had done it better. A lot of the things I put out on Slick Dissident, I misspeak a lot, and it's edifying to catch yourself in your mistakes, but it's also fortifying to forgive yourself those mistakes and just move on to what needs to be done now, what you can take back into your hands to rectify. So yeah, no dwelling on the past. That's powerful in art.
I love that, Gabe. I when I first started recording videos, I actually started with Elder Futhark runes. And when I first started recording, I was like editing them and trying to make them perfect and re-recording and re-recording. And honestly, it just wasn't working for me. I was spending so much time stressing out about trying to make it perfect that once I got the recommendation for StreamYard from Chance, actually, and I started doing just live streams, they just flow so much better. And like it might be a little bit clunky. There's some
It was
awkward
perfection
and ahs.
procrastination.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there's so much power to that, both on like just the energetic level and just on the mental health level. Like there's definitely something for making a nice polished product, but sometimes the instant release is just so powerful. So I love that.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I got
timing.
something really big on that to kind of, yeah,
You go ahead.
yes. Something that this is huge. This is the kind of maxim that can really change your worldview if you live into it. Carl Jung has a phrase. He says it so much cooler than I can. It's in Latin, so he's saying it like, in the highest form of articulation. It's the Latin phrase that is essentially from perfection, nothing can come. And that is to say, if everything is perfect, then what's the point of trying to improve? And there's an embrace to the idea that actually allowing things to be kind of fucked up, it gives you a guiding light to be the improver of the world. Because if everything, much like the maxims of equity, they say that all that has happened is as it ought to be. And that's a weird mind fuck to tell you that you can't improve this place and there's no point in trying to accuse events of being evil because it's all in God's plan. But there's something more empowering in seeing that no, things do need improvement. And if they were perfect, what's the point of striving? And so there's a loving embrace for imperfection in what Carl Jung gave us there, that from perfection, nothing comes.
It's sterile. Yeah. Think of if you want to see that played out in allegory, go look up the old film Zardoz. That movie will do it.
The movie is awesome.
It's
Also,
awesome.
this is a really nice segue to one of the transits that's coming up that I think you just touched on really perfectly and summed up beautifully. As Venus is moving into the sign of, oh my God, Virgo. I almost said Gemini. As Venus is moving into Virgo, again we have this this idea of debilitation. So Venus is considered to be exalted in the sign of Pisces. So therefore, when in the opposite sign of Virgo, she's considered to be like it's considered to be her weakest place, because again we have this planet that is associated with pleasure and softness and sweetness and harmony. She has to use the temple. She's in the temple of Mercury, therefore she has to use the tools of Mercury. So it is said that the idea of debate and intellectual discourse is anathema to Venus's vibe. She just wants to chill. She just wants to hang out. She wants to harmonize. She wants to just bring everything together. But you can't do that when in a Mercury temple. So there is definitely this idea of perfectionism and the need to really or the desire rather to want to analyze and get really caught up in details, but needing to just kind of let go of that a little bit while Venus is going through Virgo, especially because she's just rising as this evening star. So we want to kind of flow with her energies and bring out more art. So I really like that you could use something like that, some kind of transit like that, to get a little bit more structured with the timing of how you're starting and finishing art projects. You could definitely work with the Mercury aspect there. Use a little bit of magic with that, but don't get too perfectionistic and just release it when it's time to release it. I like that a lot. Yeah, play with that. I like it.
We should bring back the flow states. Those are good times.
We should bring back flow state.
Yeah, who in the chat would hang for that? And maybe even come on to the call. So we used to do this thing where we would take turns reading books to each other and just passages from books, and then the other participants are working on art, and we take turns reading, and everyone else doing art, and everyone in the chat working on an art project, and it was just it was a really good time. I think we should work that back in. Make it its own thing. Why not?
That was
good
fun.
Opportunity to read. All right, Kaylee. So how do you feel about doing little group divination, that you're famous for?
Ooh, like tarot cards?
Yeah. Yes, like tarot cards for sure.
Or, well, I mean, I could pull up the chart of the moment right now and see what it says too. There's a lot of ways we could take divination chance. Don't be so narrow-minded.
Sure. Let's do both.
No.
Give us the forecast or whatever. Do a thing. Entertain me.
Oh no.
It's my
geez.
time. Leo rising time.
Yeah. Oh,
Dance, Jester.
I am not a
Gabe,
jester.
do the splits.
Gabe can do the splits, can't he?
It's been documented on this stream.
I believe it. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Ooh. Okay, I'll pull out cards.
Blew a hole in those pajamas, so I wouldn't try it.
Stretch your pants. What should we ask? There is a Lionsgate is such a interesting thing. There is actually a pretty major transit coming up. There's a couple actually that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. We have the first opening square of Jupiter and Saturn since their conjunction on December 21st, 2020 at 0 degrees tropical Aquarius. So there's a lot to go into with that. That I could easily spend like two solid hours just talking about that itself. But
Well, no, that's actually interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying
so the High Priestess says go into that. So opening square, Jupiter and Saturn. Let's talk about that a little bit.
yeah, because that conjunction was a huge herald of the lockdown era,
That was
and how the world
intense.
was not going to be the same after that, even when the dust settled.
Yeah, that was really intense, and
Yeah.
other
That-
planets
that-
coming
that
in.
could-
Go ahead.
The conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was very much a Judas kiss. When Judas kisses the Christ, he eclipses his face, and there was a lot of betrayal in the cosmodrama happening at that time. So yeah, let's wrap on that, Kaylee. Is it near 8/8? Is that the time frame for that?
Let me pull it up.
That's when Mercury goes retrograde, I think. It's a very mercurial number. 8/8 is the magical square of Mercury.
I was all focused on these silly politicians that I forgot to bring that up. Okay,
I got about this whole opening square. I got some instability reversed 4 of discs, which seems like it's already going on. Like the whole, economy not doing so well right now, domestically, as a nation. There's a clearly some cred has been lost, or some power and authority has been badly compromised, and it's coming to light and being talked about, and it's just going to be talked about more leading up to the election, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, so before we can talk about the square, we have to talk a little bit about what a conjunction is, okay? So anytime you have a conjunction of two planets, we are talking about the seed of a cycle being born, right? The Jupiter-Saturn one is a pretty big deal, right? It happens approximately every 20 years, and it sets the stage for some major changes that take place over the next 20 years from that conjunction point, right? Everybody's pretty well aware of what happened on the collective stage when those two planets came together at the first degree of Aquarius, but what I'm more curious about is how it unfolded in your personal lives, because we could talk about it on a collective level, and that's fine. That's one way to look at it, but it's more relevant and more powerful if you look at it on the personal. So if you know your chart and you know what house Aquarius is, that's where you need to start. Now, it might not be obvious what took place, what was seeded for you. It might be for some, it might not be. But first, that's where you have to look first. So number one, that's where the seed is Aquarius. Jupiter and Saturn coming together is about the complete restructuring of an old system. Sometimes the restructuring is a good thing. Sometimes it is not. Everything that is old isn't necessarily bad. Everything that is new isn't necessarily good, and vice versa. Everything that is old isn't necessarily good, and everything that is new isn't necessarily bad. So when these two planets come together, Saturn representing the old, Jupiter representing the new, we often have to test out different things, and we gradually come to realize that, hey, this old way I've been doing something isn't working for me anymore, and I need to completely restructure, right? Gut it and restructure, right? Just go right to ground zero. So in your own personal chart, where Aquarius is where that seed was planted, okay? Now in the opening square, so Jupiter, being the faster moving planet, has moved away from Saturn. Saturn is now in tropical Pisces. Jupiter is in tropical Gemini. Where these two planets are now in your personal natal chart is going to kind of tell you the story of how this square is going to unfold in your life, okay? So that starts to get a little bit complicated, but it's not impossible, I promise. You can put this together. So a square is a pretty dynamic aspect, right? It's of the nature of Mars, which means that there is some inherent tension with a square. That doesn't mean that it's bad, okay? Yes, there is a bit of instability, but that also means that there is actions that have to be taken. There's the Mars part of it. And that there's a little bit of a push and pull between the two planets. Now, even though Jupiter is the faster moving planet, Saturn is actually in the dominant position in this particular square, meaning that Saturn will actually rise to the top of the chart before Jupiter does. So, as we try to expand into the Jupiter house, into your Gemini house, as you're trying to change whatever Aquarius seed was planted and pull yourself forward in the Jupiter way and expand into your Gemini house, there is something in the Saturn house in Pisces that is putting on the brakes, so to speak. So it's like, hey, wait, yes, we want to expand, we want to do all of the things. However, there's structures that need to be in place, there's boundaries that you need to obey. And if we do this too quickly, it's not going to be long lasting. Saturn ultimately is about making something that has a strong foundation so that it can last for a long time. So if you think about it now, what house Jupiter is in, what house Gemini is, often that's where you'll see it, where it's like the most obvious. So for myself, for example, I'm a Capricorn rising, so Gemini is my 6th house of work and health. So I'm actually doing a lot of different things for my health, but I have to pare back a couple of them because it's too much. I'm taking on new roles at work. So I'm learning all sorts of different things about very technological and very mercurial things actually at work. But I have to take it a little bit at a time, because if it's too much all at once, well, then I start making mistakes. Or if I go too fast, then I start making mistakes. And the Saturn square is happening from my 3rd house of communication. So if I'm not practicing really good, solid, and emotionally mature communication, there's the Pisces part of it, then things start falling through the cracks in my personal life as well, right? So there's quite a bit to unfold with that story. Now, the seed, just to keep myself as the example, the seed being planted in the 2nd house, that's where Aquarius is for a Capricorn rising. We are talking about, well, okay, I want to restructure my finances and how I earn money. I want to make sure that I have all of the resources that I need. And that's not just financial, that's also on a broader scale too, right? Like I want to continue to study astrology. I want to cultivate good connections with the people around me. I want to gain more capital in different areas. But in order to do that, I have to take on new roles at work, and I have to make sure that I'm honoring where Saturn is in the 3rd house. So it's just kind of like a brief kind of overview of how that square is playing out for me. But yeah, how you do this, you just find where Jupiter is, find where Saturn is, and think about how you're expanding into the Jupiter part, how Saturn might be bringing a bit of a reality check for you. So for some people, it could be that you want to do all these things, but there's actually a more real example. Third house can be transportation. Well, I want to get a new laptop, but I have to fix my sunroof first. My sunroof, literally a boundary. I have to fix that first before I can get a laptop. So I just think that's so freaking funny. But yeah, so that's just how you look at it on the personal scale. When it comes to things on the collective, well, when we're talking about the different technology and the passports and whatnot, and also the nanobots slash injectable technology that was rolled out around that time, well, it's kind of felt like it's been sort of in the background right now for a bit, right? So with the Jupiter expansion of different forms of technology, right now that Jupiter, as we're going into the square, is being checked by the Saturn. Okay, well, Saturn and Pisces can be sickness. All right, so we have this technology, and now lots of people are getting sick. That's one way to look at it. Or we have this technology, and we want to get everybody on this this digital thing. But, you know, then there's cyber attacks, for example. Or people are getting more savvy to it, and they're developing more emotional maturity in order to combat some of the things that are being rolled out, just as some more examples for you guys. Oh, also, one more thing. I actually did a ton of research about Jupiter and Gemini, and I found a couple of different instances where there were very massive and public court wins regarding misinformation and straight up lies by different health and pharmaceutical companies coming to light. So I thought that was really interesting. There were some really big settlements as soon as Jupiter moved into Gemini. So that's something to definitely watch for as we continue to see things unfold.
It's exciting. Gabe, you're
Kinda,
in.
yeah.
So that would have been 11 years ago, the last time it was in Gemini?
11.8.
I'm down with Flow State coming back, but we should let Kaylee tell us what the best day to launch the first Flow State. Let our court astrologer tell us when to birth the brain baby.
There
The
were
signs are
some
clear, and the other baby
but
has
Friday
to be clear
sounds
too.
good,
We got
like Flow State
a lot
Friday,
of
you got
babies to
alliteration.
prioritize.
Fridays would be cool. Fridays to honor Venus. I like that. There were some awesome dates for Inception already that happened this year. I gotta look. You've given me some homework. I'll take a look. I'll see. I don't know. I
Okay.
kind of like it. I'm a little bit crazy. I kind of like the idea of it being with this crazy square, this Jupiter Saturn square, because it's like there might be some obstacles coming up with actually wrangling the cats, you know, like herding cats to get everybody to actually come out. But if you can get them out, some epic stuff could happen, you know? So that could be fun. That could be fun.
All right, cats, you heard it. I put it on my calendar. I'm gonna shoot for doing
Amy,
it
could
at
I
like
do a request? Uh, would you be able to look at 8?
You want me to look at the proverbial Lionsgate?
Would you be able to look at 8 next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a special one because 2024 sums to 8, and so it's a triple 8, and that number has a lot of Jesus, Hermes, Apollo built into their names, and also 8 times 2 is 1776. So yeah, the Masons are heavy on that date, and we won't see that perfect triple 8s again until 2033. That'll be the next time that in our lives that we'll see a triple 8 date. So it seems very meaningful.
So I have
as
it.
you're saying that, I get a text from some electricians. We'll be there at 8 tomorrow morning.
Oh, that's fun.
So there's another 8.
That's fun. So on 8/8, sun is at 16 degrees 58 minutes of Leo. The moon will be passing over the south node over K2 in Libra. Mercury has already turned retrograde and will have met up with Venus and then past Venus, heading back towards the sun. Both of them will be in Virgo. I see Mars and Jupiter getting close. Mars will be 2 degrees away from Jupiter, 2.5 degrees roughly away from Jupiter. I think actually the Mars Jupiter conjunction will be interesting, but that won't happen on 8/8. It'll happen a couple days after. Jupiter and Saturn will be within 3 degrees of their square. So, I mean, they're getting closer and they're actually applying towards each other because Saturn will be retrograde at that point. So you could definitely see some of the Jupiter Saturn themes beginning to play out on the global stage for sure. Let's see, what else do I see here? Devin.
For those just listening, Davin in the chat says, maybe instead of fasting, I'll eat 3 meals that day. 888. But
What a nerd.
Davin, every time I say 888, I think about Davin because one time a while back I was like, yeah, 888 is times 2 is 1776, and Davin chimes in. He's like, yeah, well, 444 times 4 is 1776 too. I'm like, damn, Davin, you totally trumped me because that's 4 fours. That's even better.
I think of Triple H. Yeah, brother. Oh, we lost Chance. What happened? Oh no. We lost Chance. There he is.
I don't know what happened. I think my browser couldn't handle the pun, and it just died.
Yeah.
The
So
Mormon apocalypse already kick off in Missouri.
we were too late. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's nothing that is standing out as like jaw-droppingly exact on 8/8. There's a bunch of stuff that's like moving into aspect, but nothing that is like perfectly exact that screams at me like, oh my god, chaos or anything like that. But yeah, like I said, the Jupiter Saturn stuff is like coming together. Mars is getting close to Jupiter, so there is, you know, I could see something like beginning to unfold, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. And that's the thing about some of these bigger transits too, like the square between Jupiter, Saturn, and stuff like that. It's like both planets are relatively slow moving. So once you're kind of within an orb of like 3 degrees or so, things can begin to unfold because the energy is there. It doesn't have to be only on the exact day of the exact conjunction for it to be like relevant. So there is that. Which honestly, to me, when I say that shit out loud, it sounds like a cop-out for astrology, but it is what it is.
Yo, I drew a card on Flow State on Friday. It's a favorable prospect, yo. Looking good. Get this project underway.
Yeah.
That's it, 3 of Wands.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can look at
buddy.
some Fridays for you.
This Friday, 2 days from now, we're
This
gonna do it.
Friday.
Yeah, even if it's just like an hour, I'm gonna get on a stream and I'm gonna try to get Gabe on there, and I'm gonna invite people in the audience that want to come on. We're gonna read to each other and draw stuff.
Chance, you're such a Leo Aries. Hey, I'm gonna get you to do this thing. Actually, never mind. I'm doing it anyway, my way.
And as soon as the idea, it's like we're doing it now, as soon as possible, right now. Ask my wife. She'll be like, I would like it if we could achieve this thing or go do this thing, and I'll be like, be ready in 2 minutes. I'll meet you in the car. She's like, I had to get used to it.
That's so funny.
Yeah, man, we're making it happen. Making it happen. She gets it.
Yeah. Katsu makes a good point. That is the new moon in Leo. I mean,
Cool.
close enough. Close enough. It's close enough.
Let's plant a
make it
seed
work.
then. We'll plant
We can
that
make it
seed on
work.
the new moon. The flow state seed.
Technically, it's the next day, but that's okay.
Cool. All right, guys, I'm ready to shut it down. What else we want to say in closing, or, astrologically watch out for, or funny jokes, or promo stuff? What is it? What we got?
Me first? Okay, I'll go first. In closing, when there's scary astro weather, don't get anxious about it. I actually have a couple of stories that I didn't share because they're private, but I have a couple of stories from people where their charts were very closely aspected by the big scary transit and nothing happened to them. But what did end up happening was there was like nice emotional breakthroughs, and like there was really nice things that ended up happening for them. So if you find yourself getting really anxious about something, don't. Well, try not to. Instead, do some things to ground yourself and remember that most of the time the scariest transits end up being nothing burgers for most people. And if something is meant to happen, it's meant to happen. Just bring like an extra first aid kit along and you're fine. That's it.
Always, I mean, it's never been something I've ever had enough nervousness about a transit to do, but I reckon like on a magical level, if there really was something spooking you out about an upcoming transit, that if you took some kind of symbolic action, and wouldn't have to actually accomplish anything, but a symbolic action that carried the resonance and representation of a light version of what those things coming together might look like. To me, I feel like the magicians of the world do that all the time, where it's like, oh, I'm going to get out ahead of this thing. So let me make the thing that represents this conjunction happen on my terms and program it that way. And that might, but overall, with astrology, as cool as it is to dig into the details and the synchronicity around it, I think that if you're living your authentic purpose and the majority of the time in your life, that it always just kind of lines up with what's going on in the sky clock anyway. So you don't have to go out of your way. It's like Kaylee's just a major nerd. She's just a huge nerd.
I'm a nerd.
But one of the things about astrology that's super helpful is if you are floundering on the purpose question, or you don't know what it is to begin with, or you want a starting point of where to look, that's something astrology is really helpful for. Telling you what you already know, but maybe there's too much dust in your eyes to notice, or it's too close, like it's invisible by its proximity. Like it's always been there, but you're not realizing it. Like your nose, you can always see your nose, but you never think about that you can see your nose.
I feel like it can be extremely validating just to have someone reflect back to you the astrological symbols that correspond to something that's happening in your life. It's like, I've had that happen so many times where someone will tell me a little bit and then I'll be like, oh, okay, well that actually reflects this, and this. And they're like, holy shit. And then like all these connections start being made. It's really beautiful. But I just want to put it out there for anybody that is listening and is a part of the Universe Tribe. I do offer readings. I offer natal chart readings, transit readings, all that lovely stuff. And at the end of this stream, I'll be launching a coupon for Universe for 25% off of any of my services. So that's just for you guys. Just literally the coupon will just be Universe. So
yeah, do that, guys. It's not like an affiliate coupon either. It's she's just doing you guys a solid. Everyone I know that's had readings with you has been very happy that they did it. I can say that confidently. Going back to like when you very first started, even when you probably thought you were a noob, like you've got a knack for it.
My pre-recorded videos on my phone that I sent to people that took an hour for them to download because it was through Telegram only. Yeah, those were the days.
She's got a website. Go get on there.
Yeah.
Get yourself a read. Speaking of websites, this is also something I want to promote is I've made some improvements to my website. Brought this up last week, but maybe some different people here right now. And especially If you go to the bottom of the homepage, you can see a lot of the different varieties of content. Maybe there's things from the archive you're missing out on. The stuff we do on this channel tends to hold up. I know we talked about kind of current eventy stuff today, but this is an op that has ripples for a long time to come. So worth thinking about. Now, overall, most of the content is like timeless. It's going to hit really well at any point, whether it's older or newer. So check out the archives. Maybe if you've not been around that long, or go back to a year before you started following the channel, you might find something you really like there. And then even better is the tuning page, where you can sign up for a session for Biofield Tuning. Has now got an in-store e-commerce option. So you can get your session through the website. No more kind of like Kaylee just described with like upgrading her process. People are no longer going to need to send me money on Cash App or PayPal, and then we will hash it out in email. I mean, there's still a little scheduling through email, but you can get your session through the site, and that's just a much more confident way to access the opportunity. On top of that, this page has got lots of information about biofield tuning that is free to you to check out. Like, what's your biofield anatomy? What's going on with my throat chakra? Why is this going on with a certain organ? Like, if you're having a specific health issue and you just want a little more clues about maybe where to consider working on this from the mental, psychic, emotional level, you know, say, okay, my stomach is not digesting well. Come here to this page, check out the sacral chakra that pertains to the stomach. You know, the body parts are going to be listed on the bottom of each of these images. And then check in with like what kind of emotional stagnancy maybe is going on, or where, you know, does it feel like it's more right or left? And you can start to kind of at least get yourself on track to maybe reframing your mental state or your belief systems and doing some self-healing. So I want everyone to know the biofield anatomy. I want everyone to play with tuning forks and get themselves into coherence. But if you guys want an aura technician, then hit me up, you know. But this page I'm stoked about because it's got all kinds of new info that is available for free. So at least check it out. Sound healing, InnerversePodcast.com, sound-healing. I'm pretty excited about the much needed updates there. And Gabe, anything you want to share, close with, promote? I'm excited. Next week we've got a real schizophrenic show coming up.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm asking you now, if you're in the chat, Polymath thing, are you gonna join us on that? Because we got PK in. I think we need you to make your Vibrant debut, bro.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, Polly. It's a perfect one for polymathing. It's like, it's basically going to have his name on it because we're going to be polymathing. Yeah, buddy. So I've had a couple updates over on the Slick Dissident channel. I'm going international. I got the PayPal open up to receive. So that's a big step forward for me. And I have a show coming out here in a while. It could take a couple weeks, but the one-on-one podcast, he had me on kind of spontaneous spur of the moment, and there's a surprise guest appearance. I'm not gonna tell you who it was. I'm just gonna let anybody and everybody who can come and share in my joy for the surprise guest that popped up on that weave. It was a powerful, powerful episode. We had a lot of fun. So I hope everybody can find us over there. And just one hanging chat that I had, and it might come up. I might do it on my channel, the Slick channel. But you know, Joe Biden stepped down on 7/21 ish, but then he went off the stage. He went off the radar on 7/22. He did a disappearing act, and a lot of people were like, "Ooh, is Pi gone? Is Pi done gone?" And a strange thing, 7/22 is a pi number, and sure enough, over that week, the math community announced a new, more accurate formula for pi. And this, if you research it, the old formula for pi was a beautiful thing. It had a symmetry to it that I actually love and adore. It had a 369 as the cornerstone of how you used to determine pi. There was a 369 at the root. And this new formula, it is by magnitudes of, I don't know, 10 to the power of 20 times more accurate to assessing the true value of pi. And what this means, uh, some leaps and bounds in technology, but I also kind of read it as increased obsession over accuracy. And that kind of thing is the thing that gets people chasing their tail on the fine gritty details, the minutia of the facts. And I think that for me, it liberates me from trying to convince people that the fine minutia details of the facts is just chasing your own tail, and close enough is perfect. So yeah, I just think psychically, I'm kind of like people refuse to use X to refer to Twitter. I'm going to stick to the old formula for pi for my own personal sacred mental space, because it harmonizes to what I know. And so, in a large way, I think a lot of the whole new and improved and greater uh, obsession over infinite potential information is just going to lead people running around. To a large degree, I think the Stoic position is just going to be stick to what works for you, and don't get caught up in the details, because yeah, that seems to be what the new
Well, this
formula for
looks
pi
real
kind of
hard
points to. So
this does not look
yeah, that's
super
all I got
functional,
on
Gabe.
leaves and
This is the
hanging
new
chads.
formula.
Big
So, like, keep using your old one. This is the new one. I don't think it's going to be that handy. Maybe it's a fun novelty, but it's not exactly something you can reach for and grab really real quick.
I just love, Gabe, how I know we're
It's
trying to
wild.
wrap up, but I could keep going. I just love how in what you were saying, it's like, here's this super Jupiter and Gemini formula for something that's even more exact and perfect, and you're like, nah, it's Saturn, fuck it. It's like, this is more harmonious and beautiful anyway. That cracks me
Oh,
up.
man, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
cracks
Yes.
me up.
If it works, then don't claim that it's broken. If it works, don't claim that it's broken.
Yep, that's good stuff. Okay,
Okay.
I'm tapped out.
We're tapped out. Machine, thanks for the 888 super chat. Love you, dude. And for the channel membership. Appreciate that too. You guys can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't want to subscribe to the Patreon in terms of being a member, and the premium content's there too. But we're out. We love you. Thanks for hanging. This has been a blast. Looking forward to the next time we all see each other Friday for a flow state. So don't forget about that. Friday afternoon. Watch the Telegram. If you're not in the Telegram chats, get on it. Interverse channel, Interverse chat. Get there. All right. Bye-bye. Peace. Much love. Be good. See you later.
Bye.
Big respect, y'all.